The Media Dialogues, Vision 2020.
From lockdown, we've moved to the great unlock. Big strides are being taken to return to a pre-COVID normalcy. But can we go back to that normal? Or will this never-before experience have a lasting impact on the way people think and behave? What are the changes and how deep do they go? Answers to these questions will help businesses find a way out of the current crisis. And so my guest today is Preeti Reddy. She's the South Asia CEO of the Insights Division of Kantar, the market research and consulting business. Now, Kantar has been associated with some of the milestone surveys and practices of market research in India and across India, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. It employs over 4,500 people. Now, last year, Kantar conducted 8.6 million interviews across a host of surveys and studies. Preeti, thank you so much for joining us. It's good to see you.
Hi, Anuradha. Great to be on the show.
You know, my first question is, have you all been really busy working overtime?
Yes, it is. We've been working overtime. We've all been working from home. Luckily, we have our profession allows us to do that.
Sure.
The number of questions that clients are asking have increased. We have, in terms of sheer volume of work, the way we traditionally do our work in India and in South Asia is through face-to-face interviews. But what has happened is that in the last 2 months or so, we have not been able to do those because of the lockdown and social distancing. So we've looked at alternate ways of answering those questions.
What are these questions that your clients are asking? What is it that businesses and marketers want to know at this point of time?
The questions, as we've seen it, are changing. When the lockdown first happened and we had clients whose factories were closed, who could not put product out in the market, they were asking us questions like, how do I manage and create new distribution channels? What is the impact of this on my brand? How do I revisit the media choices that I have made to maximize ROI? And how suitable is my content and messaging in a time when, consumers are, do they want to hear from us in this time?
Sure.
Those were the questions that they were asking. Now they're slowly moving towards recovery planning and looking at category gains, demand forecasting, etc. But what's really interesting is that they've also started moving towards more fundamental and structural change because, they're reviewing their innovation pipeline. They're looking at changing business models because, what COVID has done is digitized everything.
Yes.
There's a reconfiguration of distribution, of retail, of services, and a review of the expression of their strategy and the brand purpose in light of what has happened. So those are very fundamental answers and fundamental questions that they're asking. The playbook that marketers used to have in the past has become almost irrelevant.
Wow.
Because there's nothing about the past that will help you predict the future.
Sure.
You're actually looking at a completely new playbook, and in a sense, for all of us, what COVID has done is reconfigure or given us a jolt and said that what you were doing in the past is not relevant in the future. And the thing is that it was happening; it was already happening. People were talking about that, and people were appreciating that. But this has just accelerated the whole process.
So, Preeti, these are large marketers and therefore large companies and businesses. But I know that Kantar has also focused on, SMEs and MSMEs. What is something that you can share with where that sector is concerned? Because there is the spotlight on this sector is intense because of the kind of employment opportunities and the sheer volume of the economy that they occupy.
So when we spoke to them, I think it's a fairly depressing, playback because about almost half of them are saying that they will go out of business if things don't change. And the sentiment, if it is, among large marketers, it's a kind of a slowdown, but among the SMEs, it's survival.
It's existential.
It's existential, absolutely, and that's it's quite a sad picture, and I hope the government's focus on them will help them because they don't see a very bright future.
You're saying that for the MSME sector, it is an existential crisis. Whether or not they'll survive is their key concern.
Yeah, yeah.
What else are you hearing? Are you hearing any solutions or any, any roadmap that they are being able to see for themselves?
I think they're asking for, they're asking for money in their hands, but they're also asking for money in the hands of their consumers or customers.
Sure.
Because there's no point us giving them money unless there is demand for their product or their services. So they're saying that we need help at both levels.
I want to take people through some of the data insights that you've shared with us, and we are going to play that or run that for people. You end with this key takeaway that demand will need to be created, and that comes in from what you've just said about what the MSME sector and other clients are seeing.
One of the things that they are saying is that post-COVID will continue to be a frugal world. They're saying that we will not spend on indulgence categories. This is a return of the essentials. If you look at the categories that, based on what consumers are saying, if you look at the categories that will recover the fastest, they're essentials.
Yeah, I can see in the slides you've given us personal cleaning, home hygiene, health,
exactly.
household insecticides, beverages, OTT subscriptions, financial protection. Yeah.
Correct. So there is a pent up demand, but it is for the essentials. Also, there is some level of insecurity in the sense that how long will this last? And people are seeing that jobs are being cut. They're seeing that salaries are being cut. So they will be very careful in the way they spend, and that is particularly so for the large mass of Indian consumers who were just moving up the ladder, but have actually been brought back very rudely to reality.
Right.
So it's, as far as the consumers is concerned, it is a step back. They will not buy cars, they will not buy houses, they will not buy any of those for a long time.
So when you say delayed recovery and that they won't buy cars and houses for a long time, what is the time frame for a delayed recovery and for these categories? Are you saying 6 months or longer?
No, longer than that. Longer than that. I think cars, auto may be the first to recover, but it will take at least a year for that. Because it's very simple, Anurad, exactly what the SMEs are telling us, that unless I have money in my hand and I know that that money will continue to come in and will grow at a certain level, I will not spend on things that are big ticket items. So that's really it. And also in the middle category, which is say indulgence categories, I've learned to live without them. I've learned to live with the fact that I don't need so many clothes.
Right, absolutely.
Isn't it? So some of those categories, the behavior will have to be recreated in a sense. Demand will have, marketers will do it, but it is not a natural movement for consumers in this current scenario.
So I find this interesting in some of the stuff that you've shared, Preeti, that when asked the question, you had two questions or two statements. I believe the economy will recover quickly once the coronavirus situation has died down. In India, almost 42% said that they believe the statement. 42% of Indians said that I believe the economy will recover quickly once the coronavirus situation has died down. 41% said it will take a long time for the economy to recover and will have a long-term impact in terms of job losses and businesses struggling. So it seems almost like India and Indians are divided almost equally. In these two very opposite kind of conclusions.
Correct. There is polarization in that. And not everybody thinks that the economy will come back very fast. But if you, on that same slide, you will notice there are more people of the percentage of people who are optimistic GDP is higher than in many other countries.
Absolutely. I was actually just going to come to
Yeah.
that in spite
There
of
is,
the fact
yeah,
that
in
it's
spite of that,
polarized,
yeah, yeah,
compared to other countries, especially the Americas and Western Europe,
correct.
Indians are definitely more optimistic than these other
Yeah,
countries, right? People in
yeah,
these other countries.
yeah. They're definitely more optimistic, and their fear has always been more job security and livelihood than health. So the sentiment is that it will come back. This is a temporary phenomenon, and once COVID goes, things will be. So it's we're an amazingly optimistic country in that sense, and you must have seen the other data point we shared with you, which is that they expect a swoosh recovery.
Yeah, yes, yes.
Yeah. So that's a sign of optimism again. It is not a W, it's not a L or any of those things. It's a faster recovery as compared to the Western world. And
Yes.
some of that lies with the fact that they have seen growth in the past of which is more than the Western world, and they
Right.
have in their lifetime uh, seen their situation becoming better. So
So,
they're
Preeti, that's very interesting because it sort of alludes to the sample, isn't it? So, give me a sense of the kind of people, both in terms of the demographic, and psychographics that you could share for this kind of to make this conclusion.
So I think this barometer, COVID barometer, from which most of this data is taken, is SECA. It's the higher
Sure.
SEC, SECA-B. These would be people who are literate, let's say they're not, they are the upper end of the demographic in
Sure.
terms of, social economic condition. And they're largely metro.
Preeti, in these insights that you've shared, I'm really curious about a couple of them, and which is that while consumers will have new value equations in mind, they'll be
Yeah,
conscious of the origin of products and they look
yeah,
to
yeah.
shop for local products. Where is this coming from? Because this is not a sentiment Indians have displayed, for a long time, and at least not since liberalization.
Yeah, yeah. I think that value, that vocal for local, has certainly, what shall I say, hit a chord among them.
So you're saying that this sentiment is a direct result of what the Prime Minister has announced and has urged people to think of, this Atmanirbhar Bharat?
Certainly, one of the elements that have contributed to that. The other is that all this. I think if you look at the slide, another slide which looks at China versus the US,
Yes.
far less favorable with China. So this implication of China and COVID also, I think, is playing a role in this.
Right.
So they're saying it's vocal for local. We're safer with the Indian products. We will find value in Indian products, and at least among this class of people, which is the upper income, upper SEC, China has become a bit of a bad word.
That's very interesting to hear because it suggests that a lot of Chinese brands and even American brands, relatively less, but both all foreign brands led by China, followed by America, and then, whoever else will be, will not be looked at so favorably by the Indian consumer.
That is true. The only problem with the Indian consumers, they actually don't know what is Chinese and what is Indian and what is American.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's a sentiment which may not actually play out in actual purchase unless you go around saying this is a Chinese brand or this has Chinese components, etc., etc. When we talk to consumers, for instance, they don't know what is a multinational company and what is an Indian company.
Sure.
So it's a sentiment, and they will. I think local brands will do well. Brands that say that they are local, Indian, etc., will do well.
How does it affect multinational companies, which could be Indian in terms of their manufacturing, could be Indian in terms of the amount of years that they've done here, in terms of their serious heritage that they can lay claim to, but in terms of their ownership are not Indian?
Consumers don't care so much about that. They will be buying Indian. They will. I mean, a brand that says that I'm Indian will get buyers. But like I said, they don't. Indian consumers don't actually know. For
Yes.
instance, Hindustan Unilever or Nestle's ownership is what. These are companies and brands that have been in India so long that they're Indian. They're in their minds they're Indian. As Indian as a Godrej or a Wipro or a Dabur is. I don't think that's an issue for brands that have been here for a long time. And in the final analysis, they will buy a brand that they want to buy.
And which offers them that value which you talked about.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about the research industry and what Kantar represents. All businesses, all industry sectors have been disrupted terribly by COVID-19. What has the disruption been for the research business as experienced at Kantar?
It's not just Kantar. In India, all companies, all research companies have been disrupted, at least for the last 2 months, because of the fact, as I said, that we are able to do face-to-face interviewing, which is a significant part of what we do. But there is what this has done is it has almost kick-started us into looking at moving to online interviewing, which we have been doing for a while and which we have been saying is the future and the way to go, etc. So, but the urgency is that much more. And I say that because of this, there are many innovative ways in which we are trying to answer client questions. We are doing telephone interviewing. We're doing what we call hybrid interviews. We are setting up panels. We're also hoping that face-to-face interviewing will come back. But in the absence of that, we have set ourselves, I think all companies are doing that, set ourselves really stiff targets in terms of, so that we're never in this vulnerable position again.
Sure. But in a country like India, that face-to-face interview has a lot of value, isn't it?
It does. It will never go away, but the percentage of interviews that are done through face-to-face has to reduce. I think in India, it is 80% is still face-to-face. We are, in another 2 years, it will be reversed. 80% will be online. And in India, online means mobile.
Right. So what is the kind of pressure this puts on your, on your cost structures to get this transition going? Or is it that once this transition happens, it'll probably be cheaper?
Once you move to online, your cost structures and your, become lower, and also you become a leaner. I mean, there are entire layers of people who you will not need. Because the way that online works is different. So, there will be a balancing in that, and you will finally probably be at the same price.
Give us a sense of what is the kind or the new areas or the new kinds of research that needs to be done, because, we were talking before we recorded and you had some interesting thoughts there.
Yeah. So I think the most important thing that will happen is that, right now, what we do through face-to-face interviewing is what we call a survey. The surveys will not go away, but what is happening and what will happen more and more in the future is that we will look at multiple sources of data to answer the question. Survey may be just one of them. The fact is that clients have a lot of data with them, their own work that we have done for them in the past, and then there is data that is available abundantly on the net, the search data, the social data, all of that, which is people giving their opinions voluntarily.
Yes.
So whether you want it or not, you're getting that. But there is great richness in that data, and increasingly what the research skill will be of curation of the various sources of data that we have.
Right.
Questions, and that's a really welcome move or welcome step, because it is then you are looking at the totality. You're looking at a holistic answer to a question. What will also become very important is culture and context. We do work in that, but that is it is now such an important part of why consumers buy.
One question about, how have you kept people's morale up? You're leading a large team. And how has the Kantar experience been in terms of keeping people employed? Because that is really the jobs anxiety is something that's cut across industries, isn't it?
So we've actually tried, for the fact is that we have to cut costs. I don't think there's anything getting away from that.
Sure.
We have done till now is actually cut discretionary expenditure. So, no hiring, no increments, no travel, no training, no offsites, all of that. We have also cut salaries, and we've tried to kind of grade them across various levels. We've cut salaries in 4 months.
But have you managed to hang on or hold on to the head count?
We have looked at performance-based headcount, which is something that we would have done in any case, whether it happened or not. So we've just accelerated that. We've also not renewed things like, contractor or consultant,
right,
so that we can hang on to FTE.
Right.
I think later in the year, we will also have to look at right sizing if the COVID doesn't improve, or the lockdown doesn't give us the kind of access that we need.
Right. Preeti, I can hear the pain, and I think that pain is echoed across board, whether it's peers in the industry, whether it's other industry sectors. I wish you good luck. I wish the entire team at Kantar a lot of good luck. We'll touch base again with you to see how people's sentiments change and evolve and how the industry fares. Thank you. Good luck, Preeti.
Thank you, Anuradha. Thank you.
And thank you very much for watching. Do stay tuned to CNBC TV 18 to catch all the latest news and analysis on the world we live in.
The Media Dialogues, Vision 2020.